Welcome to Wednesdays with Mark. My name is Mark Long, rector of the parish of St Andrew in Newlands, Cape Town. Today is the first in a new series following on from my daily thoughts for the day during Eastertide. I thought I'd use this opportunity to look back a little and to look forward as well. We've just completed the journey of Eastertide that followed on from Holy Week and Easter, a period that has run parallel to lockdown in South Africa. A different experience to previous years. And I'm wondering how you have encountered both the season and in the midst of the season, the risen Christ, and what that has meant for you in a different environment in terms of us being tied largely to our homes during this period. For me, working through the book of Acts and the Gospel of John, was a wonderful focus and kept me feeling quite centered in my life during this time, which has been important because I'm sure, like me, your emotional roller coaster has probably been quite a journey. And there's this wonderful aspect of our faith that does, when we give focus to it, does center us, and we can hold all these other things more gently, perhaps, as we allow our faith to be something that forms that fulcrum and that space that we can come back to and find perhaps a little moment of sanity in all the chaos that we've been having to embrace. The season of Eastertide specifically encourages us to encounter the risen Christ, and the readings from the Gospel of John and Acts have allowed us that opportunity. And it may be helpful just to go back in this new season and just reread those two books. Start at chapter 1 of Acts and start at chapter 1 of John, and just read through to the end and remind yourself of perhaps where you have encountered the risen Christ over the last while. So we give thanks for that period. Having celebrated Pentecost, we now move into what is often termed ordinary time. Ordinary not because it really has to do with the everyday, but because there's a series of Sundays that are numbered that lead us from here to Advent. There's another short period of ordinary time that comes in after Epiphany and that leads us into Lent. Ordinary is a helpful term, perhaps, though, in terms of this, because the thought in the back of my mind is ordinary has to do with just normality. It has to do with daily life. It has to do with getting on with life. And in this season that follows on from Pentecost, it's an opportunity to get on with life, and yet to do so in the awareness that we have the Spirit of God active and present in our midst. Not that Pentecost for us suddenly brought the Spirit into our lives. Pentecost, we remember the gift of the Spirit to those early Christians. But an opportunity for us to be more focused again on what it means to live in the power of the Spirit, to know the strengthening of the Spirit as we grapple with everyday issues. And again, going forward, the issues will be a little different to what they were last year, as the levels of lockdown hopefully decrease, and we move towards one, and hopefully to a point where lockdown is completely lifted. That's probably going to be part of this journey of the season after Pentecost. And so it may be helpful to look forward a little and just to think, what are some of our hopes and dreams? Quite a lot of Eastertide was just mourning what we had lost due to lockdown, and journeying with the early disciples as they grappled with what they'd lost in Jesus' death, but also what they had gained in the risen Christ, which, as we saw, quite often left them quite confused. And even for us 2 millennia later, it's not always as clear as I think I would certainly like it to be. But going forward, it really is to ask the question, we've lost a lot. And perhaps the hopes and dreams that we had as we entered into 2020, we've had to put aside. And perhaps now's the time to reflect on what are our reasonable hopes and dreams within the context of this pandemic, and the likelihood that this virus is never going to truly go away. It's always going to be part of our lives and something we're going to have to get used to living with. and some of the protocols that go with that. But what are your dreams and hopes? What are your dreams and hopes for everyday life, for the future? What are your hopes in terms of faith and growing more deeply into faith? This period of ordinary time is liturgically marked by the color green. Green is a sign of growth. It touches too on the importance of maturity. And so it's a season in which, in terms of our faith, we continue to grow and we continue to mature. So the seeds, in a sense, through Eastertide have been planted in our lives. This now, as we get on with life, is a time in which those seeds are able to germinate and begin to grow and even develop fruit. And so we speak of the gifts of the Spirit. We speak too of the fruits of the Spirit. What is our hope for this relationship with God through the Spirit of God in the weeks and months that lie before us until we come to Advent in November or early December? So I leave you with those questions for thought, and I invite you to join me again on Friday for Fridays with Mark.